Welcome back to a timey-wimey pod where we watch every episode of Doctor Who from 2005 onwards. My name's Rebecca.
I'm Haley.
And today we are discussing Series 15, Episode 5, The Story and the Engine.
We sure are. I cannot believe we are at episode 5. There are 3 more episodes left. And then it's the end of the series, and I can't handle that. And it was officially announced today that the finale on May 31st will be simultaneously broadcast worldwide, meaning for us, it's going to be at the weirdest time. And that is unfortunately a day that I am very, very busy. So I most likely won't watch the finale until that night or the next day. Pray for me to not get spoiled on Instagram.
You need to
Twitter.
just delete it. You need to just delete the apps off your phone.
I know. Ugh, it's going to be so hard.
No, I'm going to have to delete Twitter that day, but hopefully, I really don't know. I don't know. It's going to be rough, you guys.
It really is, but I am really, really intrigued to know why they're doing that, and it makes me scared.
So this episode aired May 10th, 2025. It was written by Inu Ellams and directed by Michaela McPherson. Now, this episode is partially inspired by Inu's play, The Barbershop Chronicles. Russell went to go see that play, and he was really inspired by it, and he kept thinking, what would happen if the doctor walked into that barbershop? And when Ncuti first got casted, he and Russell immediately were talking about Inu to have him come on the show and write an episode. And when it was announced that Russell was coming back, Inu actually DM'd Russell on Instagram and was just like, so excited to see what you do next, blah, blah, blah. And over Instagram DMs, Russell asked him to come right on the show. And that's how we got this episode. And Inua actually makes a cameo in this episode. Did you catch it?
I did not catch it initially, but I saw someone else point it out.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until I was watching the Unleashed episode and they pointed it out. But yeah, I just think that's kind of a fun story about how this all came together. And it's really interesting that this is like partially inspired by his play.
That is really interesting.
Now, this episode has a lot of familiar and returning faces, and not just the ones you recognize. Arian Baker, who plays the barber, he previously played Leandro, who in The Woman Who Lived. And if you're like, who's that? It's the lion guy, King, with me / Ishildar. It's been a while since I've watched those episodes. But yeah, Michelle Asante, who plays Abby in this episode, previously played a neighbor in The Forest of the Night from Series 8.
That is why she looked familiar to me. I'm telling you, I have the superpower. I can sense when someone's been in Doctor Who, even if I'm literally watching Doctor Who. I'm like, you've been here before.
You've been here before. I recognize you. Love all the Capaldi era connections. I don't know why. That just makes me happy.
It makes me so happy too. I feel like a lot of the connections in New Who a lot of times are like the 10th Doctor or the 11th Doctor and not so much Capaldian. I love Capaldi.
And Sewell Remy, who plays Omo, previously played a soldier in the Aliens of London, a unit soldier.
Oh my gosh, stop it. No, he didn't.
It was such a small role that he was uncredited because that's how small it was. And in Unleashed, he was like, yeah, it's just really cool, like 20 years later to be back here, and it's all very full circle. So
why is that like making me crash out?
Right? I know, it's crazy. So lots of connections to so many different eras in this episode. Where do we even begin with the story and the engine?
I honestly don't know. Maybe we should start by sharing how we feel about this episode. So you mentioned in our series prediction post that we posted on our socials that this was the story you were looking forward to the most, and you thought you would like this, or this would at least be a top story for you. How are you feeling?
I feel like I really ate with that prediction. I really called it. I picked this as one of the episodes I was most looking forward to, specifically because of Inua Ellams and his writing. And I was really fascinated by what kind of story he was going to tell. And this is, exactly kind of what I was hoping for and what I was expecting from him. And I really enjoyed this episode, and it's something that the show never could have done before without Shuchigatwa and without Inua Ellams. And I really love that that's what we're getting from this series, is stories that the show never would have been able to tell before until now.
Yeah, that aspect is a highlight of this episode for me, of how much cultural significance was in this episode. I love that. I loved really seeing a new part of the world that hasn't been really showcased on Doctor Who. And it was really fun to do that. It was so wild. It was 2019. We're not going to stay on that because that will make us both crash out and have panic attacks, but that was painful to hear. My overall feeling on this episode is I really enjoyed this episode. I had this episode ranked last because I don't like spiders, and there was the spider in the trailer, and I was just not about it. The spider didn't really have that much to do with this episode, so I don't feel
Yeah,
as
watching
strongly.
it, I was like, okay, she'll be okay. Like, you don't really see the
Yeah.
spider that much.
No, it's no arachnids in the UK or anything. But spider thing aside, I really enjoyed this episode, but I do have criticisms about this episode. I don't think it was a full on, like, best of the best episode, but I do think this was an incredible debut of Anua in Doctor Who. And I think it's always tough when you're a new writer and you're writing for a new show that you haven't done before. I think he did a great job, and I think he can only go up from here. My main criticism is more with the plot itself of the barber and kind of his whole storyline. When I watched this episode initially, I ended the episode feeling so dumb and confused. Watching it a second time, it made a lot more sense because I was paying way more attention, because I was writing notes and like really intentionally thinking about everything. I think this is an episode that would have really benefited from being a two-parter, and that's the downfall of such a short series.
Yeah.
Is that that's not really an option, and I think if this was a two-parter, it would have flourished even more.
I don't even know if you need to make it a two-parter, just make it an hour long, because I agree. I've seen people comment throughout this season that the pacing has been off or episodes need to be longer. And with the other episodes, I didn't really feel that as much, but I did notice it here. The pacing things, because of just limited time, things get rushed through. And so I think if these episodes were just a full hour, a full 60 minutes, we wouldn't feel that. I just think we needed a little bit more time to let scenes kind of breathe more, for explanations to breathe more, just for things to get a little more fleshed out. Because I agree, the first time I watched this, I ended it and it was like 1:15 in the morning, and I was like, that was really good, but I'm really really confused. I don't understand so much. And I did understand more on the rewatch, but yeah, specifically everything with the barber and his web and his relationship with the gods and his motivation, that was very confusing to me.
Yeah, that was really confusing to me as well.
But I want to go back to the beginning, and we can kind of dissect everything as we go through it. I love the like projection drawing effect on the wall and the drawings and the art, specifically in the beginning of the episode and later on in the hair braiding scene, are so gorgeous. Like, the art department, take a bow, because it is breathtaking.
Oh, it is phenomenal. I really enjoyed the aspect of that storytelling window and all of the projections. I thought that was so cool and such like a cool visual effect.
And I loved the intros starting on the projection, and then we go into it. I love little moments like that when they play with the intro, like last season when Maestro plays the tune on the piano. I eat that stuff up every time.
Oh, same here. Also, at the beginning of this episode, we get another Tardis scene, and I am just eating them up this season.
Yeah.
I am so happy we're getting more of them. And we find out a couple of things in this Tardis scene. So 15 realizes they need to go to Lagos, Nigeria to boost the Vindicator. Also, 15 goes to a barbershop called Almost Palace. More on that in a second, obviously. And also, we get new Tardis lore in the year 2025. We learn the Tardis does the Doctor's hair.
Yes, that that is really interesting to me. And all the memes on Twitter about like the TARDIS just giving everyone haircuts and doing everyone's hair is great. But yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting tidbit.
And now I really want to see that process and what it's like. But yeah, I love that we got new TARDIS lore. It's always fun when we get these random bits of new information. And yeah, but with 15 mentioning Omo's barbershop, he expresses to Belinda and shares with her, like, this is a place where he really feels like home because, sorry, temporary sidebar, he obviously does not remember his time being the fugitive doctor. So this is like his first like aware experience of being a Black version of the Doctor, and so he's facing a whole new world of difficulties. And I really liked that they focused on the reason why 15 went there consistently was because he felt at home and he felt connected to a really rich culture. And I just really love seeing that, and I love that Belinda understood immediately.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved hearing about the Doctor's off-screen adventures and friends. That just took me back to the Matt Smith era when you would just hear about the Doctor knowing all these people and doing all these things. So I really like when we get kind of tidbits into the Doctor's life that we're not seeing during the episodes. And it was really touching to hear how he's found this place and these people that he can connect with, and a place where he can just go and be himself. And Belinda was so sweet. Like, I love how she just goes from, you need to get me home, and then she tells him to take all the time he needs at the barbershop. And I just thought that was really sweet. And I love seeing their friendship develop and how much she really cares about him.
I love them immensely, and I really think their growth as, companion and doctor is really shown in this episode because, towards the middle of the episode, Belinda joins 15 in the barbershop, and he's like, finally, I was wondering when you would turn up. And when she tells Abena, like, no, I was the one who told him to go off. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's nice that in the beginning she was like, you still need to take me home, but like, also, I get it. Take a minute. Like, let's stay here.
I need to talk about the fact that this episode takes place in 2019.
Okay, I guess we are talking about this.
Yes, I needed to talk about it. It was just so jarring. Like, that was just crazy. 2019 is the year I graduated high school. So I was like, why? I can't believe we have a historical set in 2019. And I don't want to go too much into like why, but it is kind of like, why did they bother to say it was 2019? What was the point? Also, like, why? Just why? But okay.
Loki, I know this is so stupid to say. They should have just said 2018 or 2017. Anything but 2019. I can't handle it. I think it's just a universal experience. You say the word 2019, so many people understand immediately without further explanation of why that is just atrocious. They chose that year.
It's also like you look back on it and you're like, yes, that was the last year before the change. Before the world ended and changed.
Sounds like a Victorian ailment. The change.
The change. Yeah, I don't know, but we can move on. The market scene was so cool. This whole episode, just again, visually, it looks incredible. The barbershop set is so detailed and so interesting, and the market was gorgeous. And I loved watching, again, Unleashed showed how they put this whole market together, and it's so cool, and it looks and feels really real.
It does feel really real, to the point where when I initially watched this episode, I was like, oh my gosh, did they actually film on location? But when I really thought about that, I'm like, No, this is Doctor Who. They filmed this in, England. So
They will
Wales.
film anything and everything in Cardiff.
They will. They will. But no, they did an excellent job, and I loved watching 15 kind of meander to the barbershop and seeing the missing poster, so immediately something's going on. Seeing the turnaround sign, which anytime someone in the show is told to turn, whether it's turn left, turn around, something crazy is up. And yeah, he enters the barbershop, then realizes he's basically sealed in, and he's low-key taken against his will to get a haircut. But then his hair grows back. That part was weird to me, and I still don't understand the hair growing back part.
I think it's because the hair has to grow back because they need to keep feeding it stories, and they need to tell the stories while they're getting their haircut. I also thought it was interesting how they said, like, it was painful for them, like, because the hair was growing back, it was like affecting the tension, and it was painful, which is just crazy. Like, how long were they all stuck in this barbershop?
That's actually such a good question. Did they say in the episode?
I don't think they did.
Huh.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the Doctor and Omo's relationship and kind of their storyline through this episode. Because, again, first time I watched it, again, it was like midnight. I was like, when the Doctor and Omo are fighting and the Doctor has his like great speech and yells at him, I was like, wait, why are we mad? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And rewatching it, you do kind of see it's not really that he tricked the Doctor into showing up or anything, because the Doctor was just showing up anyways. He does, make the choice to be like, oh, come in. And he doesn't warn him or try to stop him or anything. And he was deliberately waiting and hoping he would show up so the Doctor could feed the engine stories and so they could get free. So it is really sad to see that this person who the Doctor trusted, who he saw as family, who made him feel safe and made him feel seen, kind of used him and wanted to use him to get away and for everyone else to get away. And I just found that really heartbreaking and sad. What did you think about that?
I too also found it really heartbreaking, especially because when 15's having that confrontation with Omo, he says something along the lines of like, oh, you think because I don't have a family that like my life isn't important to get back to? And like, I get Omo's thinking, but at the same time, he kind of did betray the Doctor with choosing not to give him any information and just assuming like he was the ticket to freedom and not really thinking past just, okay, great, the Doctor comes, he can feel this place and we can all leave, and like whatever happens to the Doctor happens to the Doctor. And I mean, Omo does say that like, I thought you were capable of anything, but it's like, even if that's true, that still doesn't excuse someone deciding between themselves and someone else who is more worthy to go back to their life.
And it's really sad to think about, like, if he was just honest with the Doctor and told him like right away what was going on, the Doctor would have helped no matter what. He would have helped anyways, but instead he chose to kind of lie and trick him in a way and just saw him as a way to escape, not as someone that could help them, really.
Yeah.
I also found it really sad that all the other men there, they were all going to the barbershop to get cuts for these big events in their life. Like, one of them, one of their children was having a naming ceremony. One of them was going to be in a race. One of them was seeing their dying mother. And that really got to me, how they all went to this place to get cuts because of something important in their lives. And then they got trapped there.
Those Yelp reviews are probably horrendous.
Reviews.
So as I mentioned, as we both kind of talked about it, it was difficult to follow along on the initial watch. So I made sure to take note of like the whole dynamic between the barber and Abena, because that's what I was the most confused about. So the barber and Abena both used to work for her father, Anansi, but he was mean, so they left. And the barber basically is claiming that he's the one who basically wrote down and told all of the myths and the stories and the legends over time of the gods. He used to be mortal, but now he's no longer mortal. And he created this nexus. And Anansi, and wherever Anansi's located, actually, I don't know if it's a planet, wherever Anansi is,
I
wherever
have no
the
idea.
palace kingdom is, the nexus essentially worked so well they didn't need the barber anymore, so they kicked the barber out. But the barber was like, I want fame and attention, so I'm going to steal the engine, the story engine. So that's him with the spider, essentially. So, all of that to say, the barber is like the storytelling god, I guess. Kind of.
Yeah. That's kind of what I got, or at least
Yeah.
that's what he wanted to be. Like, he says he wanted to be the storytelling supreme and to get credit for everything he did.
Yes. And Abby, she is the daughter of Anansi, and he basically created this bet. And who participated in this bet? I'm sure everyone was so shocked to learn it was the doctor. The doctor participating in a bet? That would never
Shocker.
happen.
No.
The shocker was, though, which doctor it was.
Yeah, that reveal, seeing Joe Martin was insane. I was not expecting that at all. Thankfully I was not spoiled. I did not see those
Same.
leaks. So I was gagged. I could not believe it. I'm so glad she does make an appearance here. It just feels so right for her to be here for this episode about, culture and storytelling and mythology. It just makes so much sense to have her little appearance here. And Joe Martin is just so good in this role. The fugitive doctor is so fascinating to me. I can't wait for us to get into that whole storyline and talk about that more. But yeah, it was so great to see her. And she says that, she was in another story at the time, which is also so funny to me. She's like, girl, I was busy. Like, I was in another story. I'm sorry. I could not help you. And maybe that story will finish one day. Maybe it will be told. And I really hope it is.
I really hope so too. Watch it be told on Big Finish in approximately 10 years. The Big Finish release schedule is actually crazy, but not going to get into that. Yeah, I loved that cameo. It made so much sense. I also was not spoiled. I am so happy I wasn't, because I literally had to pause the episode, like trying to figure out, like, how is she here? And it just made me so happy to see her. Obviously, so many people know the Timeless Child Fugitive Doctor storyline. Very, very controversial. If you weren't a fan at the time, consider yourself blessed. If you thought you saw hate regarding like R2D2, oh no. There was no hate like the Timeless Child hate.
This was a rough time.
It was a very rough time, but I'm not going to get into that because it's complicated and timey-wimey. But I do, like, out of that whole storyline, I've always really enjoyed the Fugitive Doctor. And going back to what you said, Joe Martin is incredible, and I really hope her story is told on screen, not just on Big Finish, but on screen. I think that would be really great. And I've seen also a lot of people online very confused, and they're like, how does 15 remember this? Like, pre-William Hartnell's all fob watched. I think if you pay attention to this episode, the answer's in the episode. All of the stories and random bits were mixing up and leaking from the story engine.
That's really smart. Yeah, I had just kind of chalked it up to, you know how sometimes you can remember something without really remembering it? Like, he kind of remembers, like, the bet, but he doesn't really remember, like, anything else, or, like, really that he was the fugitive doctor at the time. But that makes a lot more sense, that the stories were just kind of spilling out and getting mixed up, and I really like that.
Another little story tidbit that I'm curious, was this just, like, leaking from the story engine, or is it something more? And that is no one other than Poppy from Space Babies.
Captain Poppy. Okay, when you saw her, were you like, oh, that's Poppy? Or were you like, who's this child?
I was like, who is this child? And why does it look like Poppy from Space Babies, but it wasn't until like I saw someone else mention it that I was like, oh, it's confirmed it is Poppy from Space Babies. What about you?
Okay, so I finished the episode and it ends with like Belinda being like, "Did you see that creepy child?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I wonder if the child is supposed to be the doctor as a child."
Oh, I could see that. I could see that for sure.
And I even like went back to rewind the scene when we see Poppy to like try to find a clue. And I was like, well, no clues. Okay, don't know what that was. And then I go on Twitter and someone is like, oh, it's Poppy. And I'm like, oh, gotcha. Yeah. So I did
Yeah.
not, I was somewhere else. Poppy was not the furthest thing from my mind. And it seems like a lot of other people too have not picked up on the fact that it's Captain Poppy.
Yeah, I completely understand and see how you were thinking it was like a child's version of the Doctor somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That also low key would make sense with the whole like leaking story stuff.
Right.
Poppy was just such a random wild card. Like, why Poppy?
How are they gonna weave in the space babies? Also, I can't wait for the inevitable moment where Shuti says space toddlers. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I don't know what's worse, space babies or space toddlers.
Space toddlers. Yeah, space babies just rolls off the tongue a little better.
You're right.
But how are these space babies gonna come back and like what are we doing with the space babies?
That's what I want to know. Like, what's up with them?
Yeah.
I do think it's really funny though that like Belinda was the only one to spot Poppy. I don't know why that's really funny to me, but it's just like I wonder if she thinks she was going crazy.
I know, yeah, that is really funny. It was I also found it funny too that she like remembered it well enough to tell him. Like if it was me, I'd just be like, oh crazy, that kid disappeared. Oh well, moving on.
Yeah, and her bringing it up to 15 is what's making me question it more. Like, if it was just like a random Poppy cameo and like it was never mentioned again, I would be like, oh, it's just like a really weird choice RTD made or a new
just
one
a
made.
really weird Easter egg.
Yeah.
The beloved episode Space Babies.
Yeah. But with Belinda bringing it up to 15, I do think it's possible that we'll see the return of Space Baby somehow, which makes me really scared because, again, how are you going to weave any of that in?
I don't know. Speaking of weaving things in, we got to talk about the Mrs. Flood appearance in this episode, which happens when the doctor is sitting in the barbershop chair, and out of any story he could choose, any story he could tell, he of course has to talk about Belinda and what an incredible nurse she is. And I'm really glad we got the Mrs. Flood cameo in this moment. Just a very brief, hi, I'm here to get my pills. Because I was really scared she was just going to show up in Nigeria and I was going to roll my eyes so hard because Mrs. Flood, what are you doing here? So I'm really glad that they didn't do that and they just kind of kept her in this little story from Belinda.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was very nervous about where she would pop up, and it at least made logical sense for her kind of to pop up in the hospital. She's popping up needlessly, but I feel like that's something we've talked about every week, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But going back to what you said about him talking about Belinda, I love the way he says it in the beginning, that nothing is more vivid than an ordinary life. And that just confirms that he's obsessed with Belinda, Your Honor. He loves her.
He's obsessed. Can't get enough.
And neither can we. Like, let's just be so real.
No, I'm with him. We got 2 Weeping Angel references in this episode. Yeah. And is it just me, or do we keep hearing about the Weeping Angels?
Okay, well, there was Blink and Lux, so I feel like that, I agree with you. I just have like a genuine question here, and someone else pointed this out, so I can't take credit for this. But if the image of an angel becomes an angel, why on earth did 15 keep trying to bring it up to the storytelling window?
Because they forgot that was a thing. Because it was only a thing in those 2 episodes, and then it was never mentioned again.
You're probably so right, actually. Yeah, that was so random. It was also random for the Ice Warriors to be brought
I
up.
know. Stop trying to make the Ice Warriors a thing. I mean, I know they're a thing, but let's stop trying to make them a thing. They don't work. They're bad villains, okay? They are boring.
My Doctor Who hot take is that the Ice Warriors should never be brought back.
They're boring. I'm sorry. They are boring.
So yeah, that was very interesting. This episode has lots of references, though, to previous eras and definitely jumping around. And I apologize for kind of jumping to kind of like the climax of this episode. But when 15 is kind of like in the center of the spider, I guess, where the heart is beating within the brain, is that what it was?
Yeah, it was the heart beating in a brain, which also kind of looked like a tree.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a little TV in that room, and we get the classic flashbacks to previous doctors, to all the previous doctors. And like the clips they chose were so interesting, specifically the ones of 9 and 10 and 12.
Yes, I don't care how many times the show does these kind of moments where it's like, look at all the faces I've had, look at all the lives I've lived. I will eat it up every single time. I love it no matter how often they do it. And every time they do it, every time I see Christopher Eccleston, I just want to cry. I don't know why, but seeing the Ninth Doctor just really makes me emotional. And in this episode, seeing just a little clip of him from the Doctor dances and his iconic just this once, everybody lives. It killed me and it made me so happy.
Like, I can't even tell you, I was so excited to see him. I was like so excited to see, like, they chose the war speech that I feel like is one of the top 12 speeches that Peter Capaldi did, and it's just, it was an incredible moment. And it was so funny to me that they chose the clip of 10 from Voyage of the Damned where I'm from Gallifrey, I'm the Doctor.
No, totally. Yeah, that was really funny. Did you also notice that we even see the 14th Doctor? We get little flashes of him in Donna's backyard at the end of the giggle of them all sitting around that table.
What the heck? No, I did not notice that.
It's more like in the background, kind of as the scene moves on a bit. It's really, if you blink, you may miss it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And there's even a little shot of the 15th Doctor from the church on Ruby Road.
Tea.
Yeah. Someone put together very quickly, like impressively quickly, a YouTube video of where all the scenes came from. And that was, shout out to that person.
We also did get some like visual references from this era in the show. Like on the storytelling window, there was the rocket from Robot Revolution. And there was also the Lux movie theater.
That was another part where I was like, wait, what's happening? I'm confused.
Yeah, I was confused about that, and I'm still kind of confused about that. And they mention a space opera too, which makes me think of next week's episode.
And the fact that, I've mentioned this before, but the woman on the planet where the Doctor gets the spoon, she mentions a opera house.
Girl, stop. I'm actually going to be upset if that thread is not, pulled through.
I don't know. I just, between that and the fact that Belinda's mom is like a singer or something, I'm just like,
violinist.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, is this something, or am I seeing something where there's nothing? I don't know.
I guess we'll see. We're very close to finding out. But
scary.
Yeah. But yeah, all of these references are so good.
Yeah, the visuals were great. Why was the TARDIS freaking out?
That's what I so want to know. 15 even says to Belinda, he's like,
was the TARDIS freaking out? Yeah.
Was the TARDIS freaking out? And Belinda was like, yes. And it's like, why?
Yeah, why? Like, how did you know that was happening?
Yeah, but that did, like, those alarm scenes did lead to a really great moment of Belinda yelling at the TARDIS.
Are we being attacked? That
And then
was
being like,
great.
show me the source. And then the TARDIS, being the icon she is, pulled up the barbershop.
Something I haven't really seen people talk about is that this episode is essentially a bottle episode. I mean, we have other scenes, in the market and the TARDIS, like in the heart of the engine, but for the most part, this whole story just takes place in the barbershop, and I love a good bottle episode, so I really appreciated that.
You're right. I also love bottle episodes, and this is a great one. So the whole reveal of like who the barber truly is and him trying to be super intimidating, and then Belinda and 15 just end up laughing at him was just such a great funny moment.
Yeah, no, that was great. I love the doctor saying that he's watched all the Marvel movies up to Endgame of Saga. That was Sega. that that was great.
That was so funny to hear and watch because there are so many Doctor Who actors in the MCU. So it's just so funny. And
It is.
I wonder who's like, oh, that person looks familiar. There's a really cool scene when 15 tries to get out of the barber shop and he realizes, oh no, we're like in outer space. That whole shot was so cool of all of them hanging on for dear life and trying not to be like sucked into space, and how they filmed that and all of the effects of that was just super, super cool because it felt so
Oh
real.
yeah. No, it really did. That looked really cool. I love how the moment right before the barber claims to be all these different kinds of gods, how the way Shuti delivers the line, "Don't be scared," and then he says, "We will leave here."
Mm-hmm.
Like the way he just delivers those two lines back to back, I just love everything this man says and how he says it. It's so good. I swear he just delivers every single line perfectly, and I will never get over it.
And I've said this before, so I'll say it again. Shooty is really coming into his own this season. And this episode is just like another great example of that. And yeah, he's incredible to watch.
So let's talk more about Abby, because her
Yeah.
whole story in this episode is just really interesting. I love how at the end of the episode, the men thank her for keeping them alive. Like she was the one going out every day and bringing back food. So literally, she was keeping them alive, doing everything she could to kind of help them and try to keep them safe while everything with the barber is going on. And I kind of love how like angry she is towards the doctor at the beginning. She's just another person who's been abandoned, and of course, like we already talked about, the doctor was in another story, like other things were
Yeah.
going on, but she was abandoned and she was mistreated. Like having her father make this bet about her is horrible, and I love her coming around and deciding to trust the doctor and braid his hair and braid it into the map and tell that story about slaves who made maps using their hair, which is something I had never heard before this episode. And I am really glad I know that now. And it was really educational and heartbreaking and beautiful. And again, the visuals on the storytelling screen during that scene were incredible. And I loved, then the doctor using his hair to kind of try to find the heart of the engine.
I'm also glad that I learned that fact, as tragic as it is. And yeah, seeing the doctor use his hair to maneuver his way through to find the heart of this, structure to save everyone was just really incredible. And I love the change of heart that Abby had. And she had that change of heart because the doctor discovered the true reason. Like, the barber wasn't coming back for vengeance, because that's what he said. He was like, I'm coming back for vengeance, for the throne, with Abena by my side and these people. When in reality, he was going back to essentially erase all of these gods from time. The doctor shares, like, how else will stories and culture and tradition be passed down from generation to generation? Like, you're erasing like billions of lives, you're killing them. And I think she really changed her heart because of that, because she knew just how important that was in the context of just everything. I mean, she's the daughter of a Nancy. And so, yeah, her helping the doctor, even though she's still upset with him, was just really great to see.
Mm-hmm. And I love the moment that she and Belinda have where Belinda's like, hurt
Yes.
people. And like, it's what you do with that pain that matters. And I love how she acknowledges that at the end. Like, I'm not going to carry that hate with me. And just Belinda being iconic. We love to see it.
And once they're in the heart of the engine and, there's all the flashes of the doctor on that TV, we realize and learn that 15 is telling his never ending story, because the doctor is a never ending story. And at first, the barber is just elated at this. He's like, oh, you have no idea what you've done. And Belinda points out, like, no, that's going to overload this engine. It's going to explode and destroy everything that's in here and like everyone. So I loved how she was the one to point that out, and just seeing the reaction of the barber when he realizes that, you just see all of his resolve crumble, which is really interesting because I feel like from here till like the very end of the episode, you just see how frail is not the right word. I just can't think of another word like that. Like just how weak he is. Kind of realizing that his great plan has been foiled.
Yeah, he just really wanted credit. He wanted the recognition for what he's done. And I love that the episode ends with him kind of getting a second chance. He's not necessarily a bad guy, he was just a hurt person who hurt people. And now he gets a second chance and he can do something good. And I really liked that. We don't always see that from this show.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I really liked this resolution and that no one ended up dying and everyone was able to go home, and Abena and him kind of like ended on their own terms, like in terms of like their partnership. And he had that chance to kind of start anew and make better choices. And I think his experience with being shown mercy indicates like there's a good chance that he will completely change and he will, choose to be better. And so I like that. I like that message in the show because we don't get that very often.
I thought it was funny how Oma was just like, I'm done. I'm retiring. Have fun, y'all. Like, yeah, I kind of partially caused some of this, and this all happened in my shop, but I gotta go, y'all. I'm retiring.
I thought it was the barber that was retiring.
No, the barber's taking over the barber shop. It's Omo that was he's gotta go. He's gotta retire.
Oh. For some reason I got it reversed in my notes. Either way. Yeah. No, that is funny. I also find it interesting that like he apologizes to 15, but then 15 apologizes to him. Like 15, what are you apologizing for? He betrayed you.
I know. Yelling, I guess, but yeah, I do like when he says that, I should have protected you too. Like you were also part of my community, which was really nice to hear, and I'm sure for the doctor really validating after he was betrayed by someone he thought he could trust.
Yeah.
And I love that Abby is free now too. Like she's free to go do whatever she wants, and it would be really interesting to see her again.
Oh yeah, it would be so fascinating to see her again. But also if we don't see her again, like I think where they left off is such a perfect point. Like where we can totally see her again and that would make sense. But like if we don't see her again, that's great too. Like,
No,
you know
completely.
What I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Who is the star of the show?
I have to go with Abby.
I agree.
There's just no one else I can choose over her. She, changed her mind and she listened to Belinda about how hurt people, but the difference between good and evil is what you do with your pain. And so I like that she chose to help the doctor, which ended up helping everyone else. So I got to give it to her.
Yeah, and she literally kept everyone in that barbershop alive. So
yeah,
it really has to go to her. I'm also going to give it to the fugitive doctor because such an iconic appearance. And I love that it's here. And I don't know. It's also interesting to me if you've been like online this week and you've seen the BBC Doctor Who socials. They are really making a big deal about like Joe Martin is back, and I'm just like, are we getting more? Like, what's
That's
happening?
what I want to know.
I have my theories, but I'm gonna keep them to myself.
Time will tell.
Yeah. What is the heart of the episode?
I know I just said it again, but Belinda put it perfectly. Hurt people, but the difference between good and evil is what you do with that hurt. And it's so true. And I think that's really the heart of the story in this episode.
No, I completely agree. Do we have any reviews of this episode?
Yes, we sure do. And they are both from the Doctor Who subreddit, per usual, for these current episodes. So the first review is by the user wide-t-3510, and they said, quote, I think Shooty really needed an episode like this. The pace has been so fast, and I'm glad they took a step back and had a dialogue-driven episode. I don't know how I feel about it overall, but it definitely had some interesting ideas, even if I haven't exactly pieced them together yet. I do think this is shaping up to be the best season for years, and it's really reminding me of RTD1 in a way last season just didn't, and next episode looks like the most RTD1 episode yet. True.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how next week is going to compare and hold up with everything we've seen so far of this season.
Low-key, I think it will. That's my truth and my prediction. Hopefully, I
can't wait. I can't wait.
And this last review is a pretty short one, but it's from the user Banacafalata.
Perfect.
Which is so iconic. I wish that was mine, but it's okay. And they said, quote, I'm glad this was just a dysfunctional God story with a happy ending. Kind of a reliever after the previous couple with a lot of death.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we didn't really get too much into the Pantheon. I really did not need that in this episode.
Yeah, I am very glad that there was no Pantheon mentioned in this episode. I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I am hoping that future episodes are more alien focused. I enjoyed Lux so much, and there have been aspects of the Pantheon that I've also enjoyed, but I miss the classic alien, and the God stories are just starting to kind of build up, and I'm slowly inching towards being tired of watching them.
I agree. These kind of stories about gods and mythological gods and the Pantheon, that's just not something that has ever really interested me. I mean, I really liked this episode and I have been enjoying the stuff of the Pantheon, but I don't need that to become a major focus. And it's going to keep happening. We're going to keep seeing it, but not my favorite thing necessarily. You know, I'm in for like weird aliens and sci-fi and like abandoned spaceships and planets and all that.
Yeah, definitely more of that. Also, like psychological aspect, horror aspect. Not so much fantastical. It has its place, but I want to go back to the aliens.
Yeah. Overall, I just want to say again, I really enjoyed this episode. I hope Inua Ellams comes back. He was great, visually stunning, gorgeous. Everyone's performances were incredible. Also, just like all the set photos have just been making me so happy. Gosh. You can tell they had such a good time. Yeah. Seeing Ncuti Gatwa and Joe Martin together,
in the same room?
Talk about it. I can't even talk about it. Yeah, I watched the behind the scenes before we filmed this, and Ncuti was like, yeah, we didn't have like too much time to talk, but we did get to talk and, you know, have the doctor conversation that only doctors can have. And I was like, oh, I love that. It's so iconic. Also, what I'd pay to watch that conversation. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. There's definitely aspects that I find confusing and rushed, but definitely still one that I will enjoy and rewatch and look forward to rewatching.
Same here. I really hope to see him come onto the show again as a writer. Again, I think this was a really incredible debut.
And with that, we will see you guys next week at the Interstellar Song Contest.
And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at timeywimeypod.
And email us anything and everything to timeywimeypod@gmail.com. One of these days, someone is going to email us like the craziest thing because they're like, you said anything and everything. And you know what? I'm waiting.
Me too.
Do your worst. But we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Ta-ra.